Hello viewers, and welcome to yet another live-action commentated match of Warhammer 40,000 Conquest. My name is Mitch, and I am the Hive Tyrant. Today, I'm pleased to share with you a video sent in by viewer Pejhmon Kamaie, as well as his wife, Shirin. In this video, we're actually going to be using some real-world proxy cards, of namely, our upcoming Ork Warlord from the 3rd Planetfall Cycle War Pack, Gorzod from Deadly Salvage, and on the right we happen to see Shirin playing our 2nd Eldar faction Warlord Baharroth. So Gorzod is a 2/7 unit. His gimmick is that he can include common vehicle units from both the Astra Militarum and the Space Marines, but he cannot include any other cards from a non-orc faction in his deck. And the primary appeal, apart from his just deck building diversity, is that whenever you play an AM or SM unit, you can reduce its cost by 1. And there's an absolutely perfect example. The initiative token happens to be in Pejhmon's hands, and we see the somewhat seldom played Raven Guard Speeder put out to planet number 1. So that's a 3/3 with flying, and 2 command icons for a mere 3 resources, so a pretty superb value, if I don't say so myself. To the right, we see that the Baharroth player puts out a copy of the Eldar Survivalist to planet number 5, and we see a shoot-a-mob to planet number 4. In running down our sequence of planets, planet number 1 is going to be Farron, the Route, a non-warlord unit planet. Planum is going to be planet number 2, which allows you to move a non-warlord. Barlas is going to be planet number 3, which forces a random discard from your opponent. Planet number 4 is going to be Taurus, which rewards you for keeping your unit count lower than that of your opponent. And planet number 5 is going to be Yavharn, which allows both players the chance to put a unit from their hand directly into play in their HQ. Note that the initiative token is in Pejhmon's hand, and each planet is basically facing the player that will have initiative at that planet. So we can see that Farron, Barlas, and Yavharn are all going to be on Gorzod's initiative. Very interesting deck here that our Eldar player is running. Pejhmon shared with me in sending me this video that he and his wife like to experiment with unconventional decks. Note that he himself is playing Gorzod, and she's playing a Beeltan Warp Spiders alongside an Eldar Survivalist. So that Warp Spider's sitting there at planet number 2, in case you forgot. When it's declared an attacker, I believe, you can basically pick a deck, you look at the top 2 cards, and you can discard one of those cards. We see another copy of the Eldar Survivalist put out opposite that shoot-a-mob at planet number 4, and we see a second copy of the shoot-a-mob touchdown on planet number 3. We've got a teleporta-pad in our Orc player's HQ, and by this point it looks as though both players have passed. Consider that Baharroth is pretty straightforward, pretty simple, but elegant, I suppose, in his simplicity. He's a 2/6 warlord with the mobile keyword, so he's able to shift at the beginning of the combat phase to whichever adjacent planet he'd like, affording him a nice wide threat range. I'll be very surprised to see if there's anything that Baharroth can try to do to overcome the Raven Guard Speeder at planet number 1, and what's going to be a tremendous pain for Shirin is that Farron being planet number 1 means that anything downstream of that planet could be conveniently routed. Gorzod ends up going to planet number 5, Baharroth goes to planet number 4. I'll be curious to see if Baharroth ends up shifting his location, but let's see here. Planet number 1 is going to be 2 resources to the left for Gorzod. Planet number 2 is going to be 1 card, 1 resource to the right for Baharroth. Planet number 3 is going to be 2 cards for Gorzod. Planet number 4 is going to be a grand total of 2 cards, 2 resources, as that Eldar Survivalist puts in work to the right for Baharroth. Planet number 5 is going to be a lone resource for Gorzod, but Gorzod does deny his opponent the opportunity to pull in 2 resources and 1 card because of that Eldar Survivalist. Part of the reason why players don't often run the likes of the Eldar Survivalist is just because it's a 2 resource cost unit with 1 command icon. Granted, it's got the same resource and card bonus that a Rogue Trader and Void Pirate do combined. It costs the same number of resources but only costs 1 card, but it's just as easy to surpass and shut down. We see that teleporta-pad relocate a shoot-a-mob curiously to planet number 1, and that's a very interesting choice. I guess that was just to avoid an assassination from the likes of Baharroth there, so I suppose if Baharroth is going to potentially stay at that planet, there's no reason to just throw away your shoot-a-mob unnecessarily. I suppose he either doesn't have any 2 shield icon cards or doesn't deem it being worth it, but we see Farron activate, and that Eldar Survivalist is successfully routed. We're going to see our new first planet's going to be Planum next turn, but that's going to be one red material icon for our Orc players. So let's see. In regard to icons, we could see victory through red material icons as early as our soon-to-be planet number 4, current planet number 5. Gorzod takes a swing of 2, ends up killing off that Eldar Survivalist. Looks as though Yavharn was indeed triggered. That's pretty interesting. We see a copy of the what would be 6 cost Space Wolves Predator put into play into his HQ. So that's a 5/5 with 3 command icons. So absolutely incredible card. Very funny to see it put into play in that way. And to the right, we can see that Shirin put into play a copy of the 4-cost Autarch Salakia, so the new Eldar unique from the Great Devourer. It's unique, so it could use Nullify, but in any case, it's a 3/3. You can pay 1 resource, and it gains mobile or Armor Bane or Area Effect 1. I believe it's till the end of the round, just because otherwise I don't think you'd have a window with which to activate mobile. But pretty versatile unit, pretty powerful. We can see that both of our players have an equal command presence currently on the field. Our new 5th planet is going to be Ossus number 4, which once again we'll see will be an initiative to the right. It's going to be Baharroth having the initiative at that planet when it comes down to being the first planet, if we make it that far. We see a Void Pirate put out to planet number 5 with our initiative token possessing Baharroth, and now there's quite the wealth of units there in Gorzod's HQ. So note that we're up against an Eldar player, and that means Doom is going to certainly be an option. That only affects non-unique units, but that Space Wolf's Predator, the Raven Guard Speeder, and the Shoot-A-Mob are all perfectly eligible targets to be outright destroyed, and Autarch Salakia not so much. And, you know, at the cost of an Eldar Survivalist, why not get rid of them? But we do see a copy of the Enraged Orc put out into play at planet number 3. That's pretty important because it's got a red material icon, which Gorzod is definitely going to want to hunt down. What's interesting about the planet Planum being planet number 1 is that any unit that ends up winning a battle at that planet can simply be relocated further down the line to potentially aid another warlord or something like that. Like if Baharroth were to show up at planet number 3, we could see the Bealtan Warp Spiders sent to planet number 3. We see another copy of Enraged Orc at planet number 5 for Gorzod, and very interestingly, after we see a Rogue Trader to planet number 5 for Baharroth, we see a copy of the Shrouded Harlequin at planet number 1. It's a 2/1 with 1 command icon. As soon as it ends up being destroyed, you simply pick and choose any enemy unit on the entire battlefield to exhaust. So definitely not something we see often, but nevertheless potentially pretty powerful in negating some really strong unit. Looks as though we're seeing it looks as though that's a copy of, I can only assume, Promotion put into play at the Enraged Orc at planet number 5. That's going to be great because 3 command icons, shuts down a Rogue Trader, shuts down a Void Pirate. That's going to be 2 resources to the left for Gorzod, potentially. At planet number 1, we see another very rarely played card, the Mordian Hellhound, played out for 3 resources. It's a 3/3 with 2 command. It ties command at the first planet, and it's got area effect 1. And the Shrouded Harlequin has 1 lone hit point. The Bealtan Warp Spiders, they have 3 hit points, but the Mordian Hellhound could potentially punch through 3 hit points without too much problem, so I'll be curious to see where exactly Gorzod goes. Planum is not going to be the highest priority target for him, but he could definitely do the bully thing and win through green icons much earlier than red. But looks as though both players were thinking along the same lines. They wanted to go to a red planet. It's not the victory condition for either of our players. I suppose it could be the victory condition for our Eldar player if she ends up taking planets 1, 2, and 3. Note that there's a copy of the Wild Rider Squadron at planet number 2, which could use a combat action to relocate itself to planet number 3 to aid in the fight against that orcish AM-SM onslaught. I guess it's not an AM onslaught at planet number 3, but in any case, command at planet number 1 is going to be outright tied. Command at planet number 2 is going to go and be tied. Planet number 3, it's looking as though Let's see. That is going to be a Gorzod pulling in 1 card, 1 resource there at planet number 2. Damn shame considering that Eldar Survivalist is sitting right there. Planet number 4 is going to be no resources or cards for either player. And planet number 5, thanks to that copy of promotion associated to the Enraged Orc, that's going to be 2 resources for Gorzod. So let's see. What exactly do we see with that Mordian Hellhound? Keep in mind that that copy of the Teleportapad could relocate an Orc unit as need be to planet number 1. Something like the Enraged Orc would be potentially fantastic in absorbing a bunch of damage and then killing off these rather weak Eldar units if they manage to burn through the Mordian Hellhound here. But let's see how battle breaks down. No warlords are at planet number 1, so that means it's going to be Baharroth's opportunity to take initiative. It looks as though there was no mobile keyword coming into play, so Taurus is going to be under contest. Looks like Baharroth has a grand total of 8 units relative to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for our Gorzod players, so depending on what exactly ends up being destroyed, perhaps neither of our players are going to end up being able to trigger Taurus, but we shall see. So, okay, there we go. Baharroth ends up deciding to go to planet number 2, or not. This is a pretty difficult choice, actually. Autarch Salakia could definitely do a little bit of work with that Area Effect 1, but it looks as though Baharroth has decided to retreat from that planet, and I suppose Autarch Salakia is only going to be potentially taking 2 points of damage from Gorzod before the Autarch and that Survivalist could retreat. I can only imagine that that's potentially... Okay, so Baharroth takes a swing. That's going to be 2 points of damage dealt to the Mordian Hellhound, and I suppose he's doing a conventional attack. That looks like a Cry of the Wind discarded as shields, so that's only going to be 2 points of damage on that Bealtan Warp Spiders. And at this point, we get to see Shirin pick a player's deck and assess the top 2 cards, discard one of those cards, and put the remaining card, I believe, back on its owner's deck. So let's see if we can spy what exactly is going to be discarded here. So in regard to Gorzod, let's think about signature support. Is called Customization Station. It's 3 cost. You put it into play. All those AM and SM units become Orc faction, and they get +1 attack and +1 HP. There we actually see that Teleportapad activate, moving the Shoot-A-Mob to planet number 1. Looks as though we see a copy of that. I believe that's Empower discarded as shields. So whatever it was that the Shoot-A-Mob attacked, I can only imagine that Bealtan Warp Spiders, that damage is going to be negated entirely. So we come to the end of a combat round here. That's going to be both players opting not to retreat. That Mordian Hellhound now has an Area Effect 1 volley that could potentially kill off both of these targets. Very ballsy choice here to the right from Shirin, because that's going to be another Bealtan Warp Spiders attack. It's only for 1. If our Orc player does not have any shields, then that Mordian Hellhound is going to be destroyed, but there we go. We actually see the Mordian Hellhound do its Area Effect 1 volley, I'm assuming. I guess we didn't see another discard from the Bealtan Warp Spiders. I don't know, frankly, if that's a limit 1 per phase ability or not. I frankly don't believe it is. But we see that Shrouded Harlequin leave play. That means that Shoot-A-Mob ends up being exhausted, and that's yet another attack from the Bealtan Warp Spiders. So that's a dead Mordian Hellhound. And now I'm just, okay, so there we go. I guess for some reason we didn't trigger that last time, or maybe we'll trigger it twice now just to catch up, because yeah, like I was saying, if memory serves, I certainly don't recall that being a limit once per phase ability, but maybe I missed something. In any case, we see maybe another copy of the Mordian Hellhound discarded, and that's going to be that copy of the Shoot-A-Mob killing off the Bealtan Warp Spiders. That's going to be Planum 1 to the left by Pejhmon, and that's going to be the Shoot-A-Mob relocated to Yavharn to potentially win command during the following round here. So at any point during the command phase, that Wild Rider squadron could potentially show up at that planet, planet number 2, rather, to get in a shot, but then it's going to be stranded at that planet and potentially die. I suppose we didn't see any resources to the right, so we couldn't see, like, you know, Autarch Salakia gain mobile to run away from that planet. And that's going to be a bit of a bummer, because we see 2 damage dealt out to Autarch Salakia. That brings us to the end of the combat round, and that is going to afford our Eldar player the opportunity to retreat. So it looks as though that's going to be Gorzod winning at that planet. I don't believe Gorzod actually has enough Well, he has too many units to actually trigger that ability, so that means we're going to go to our HQ phase. That's going to be 4 resources and 2 cards for each of our players here. And now, what exactly are we going to see? We can clearly see that the initiative token is once again to the left for our Gorzod player. He's got 1 planet type icon of each kind. If he can win at Barlas and Taurus, that's going to be the game. Otherwise, he'll have to win at Taurus and Yavvarn if he's not going to do it through green strong point icons, at least yet. But let's see what happens. Planet number 5 is Eloith, which affords players the opportunity to tutor the top 3 cards of their deck for any 1 card that they'd like, and put the remaining 2 cards on the bottom of their deck in any order they would choose. For some reason, Pejhmon turns his Aquila upside down. I can't help but feel like that would be bad luck or something if you're not actually, well, I guess if you were an Imperium player, maybe it would be a worse transgression, but it looks as though Gorzod has 2 cards in hand. We could see his signature attachment, the Blood Runner. You affix it to your Warlord. He gets +2 HP. When a vehicle unit is destroyed, he's ready, limit once per phase. We could see the signature event, which probably isn't tremendously useful in this deck, which is a hostile acquisition. It's like cost of 1. Whenever your Warlord damages an enemy vehicle unit, you can commandeer it, gain control of it. I believe that the Wild Rider Squadron at planet number 1 is indeed a vehicle. It cannot have war gear attachments. That would be a pretty decent target. We see an Eldar Survivalist put out to planet number 5. That could potentially be 3 cards and 1 resource, all from 1 planet, if our Orc player doesn't put any additional cards into play. But our Orc is deciding to be incredibly aggressive here. We see an Assault Valkyrie for 3 cost, a 1 command, 4 attack, 4 hit point flying unit to planet number 1. And we also see a Steel Legion Chimera. This is an interesting choice for a lot of different reasons. It only costs 2, thanks to Gorzod. It's 1 command, 2 attack, 4 hit points, and it shaves 1 point of damage dealt out to basically any non-vehicle units at its planet. Note that the Assault Valkyrie is indeed a vehicle, but Shoot a Mob, Enraged Orc, all those guys, your Warlord included, most definitely are not vehicles. So like I said, curious inclusion for Gorzod, but definitely a pretty powerful little thing. And for 2 resources, I would say it's probably a good investment. But it looks as though both of our players have decided where exactly they'd like to send themselves. Gorzod, with no other units in his HQ, quite wisely goes out there to block his opponent's potentially 3 cards and 1 resource at planet number 5. Baharroth instead ends up going to planet number 1, and that's a very curious choice because that Assault Valkyrie is going to be able to deal out all kinds of damage to Baharroth, and if need be, we could see a Teleportapad shift an Enraged Orc to planet number 1, and if there's anything that a Baharroth player cannot do, it's generally conjure up tremendous amounts of damage. Note that we don't see Ambush Platform, we don't see Ion Rifles, so it's going to be a pretty difficult matter to chew through an Enraged Orc. Interestingly, we actually see Gorzod go to planet number 1, and that makes me wonder if we actually have that hostile acquisition in hand. It was pretty convenient that Gorzod could be sent to the last planet just to block off that Eldar Survivalist, and I can't help but feel like that was maybe a slightly premature move. Like, why have your Warlord show up that early? You know, why not wait until you can maybe get your opponent to overcommit or something like that and then move your Warlord over? But maybe he's also trying to do that hostile acquisition quite early. It looks as though we actually see a copy of Archon's Terror banish the Assault Valkyrie from that planet, so that means we're not actually going to be seeing any Tau units, and that was, I believe, the first allied faction card we've seen. So the Assault Valkyrie is gone, that 4/4 flyer is dealt with. We're going to see the initiative token, of course, is in Gorzod's hand. He's got a Warlord at that planet, so he basically keeps initiative. That's going to be 2 points of damage, but dealt out to what? We see Pejhmon taking a perusal at his wife's discard pile, and thank goodness that they're married, otherwise that would be of the utmost scandal. And let's see here, so he's going to be attacking for 2 with the Steel Legion Chimera, and once again, that to me indicates he does not have a hostile acquisition, or he's trying to draw shield cards out of his opponent. Okay, so if he's attacking the Wild Rider Squadron, then let's say he's not going to try to commandeer a busted up piece of junk. We don't want something like the Millennium Falcon on our side, or at least a standard YT 1300 cargo freighter. The Falcon's a little bit souped up, but the Wild Rider Squadron is potentially going to exact vengeance here upon its opposition. It's going to be 3 points of damage dealt out to the Steel Legion Chimera, unless we actually see some sort of shielding card. But maybe Gorzod has shields, maybe not, but he's trying to do the utmost to preserve some of these cards. Looks as though that's a copy of, I believe, Gift of Isha in that discard pile, so that's going to be a 2-shield card, so that's going to be 0 damage dealt to the Wild Rider Squadron. That's going to be Baharroth successfully managing to slay the Steel Legion Chimera, and now things are looking to go all the way bad for Gorzod at the end of the combat round. He retreats, and that means that Shirin is actually going to end up winning that planet. That's going to be Barlas captured, and that's going to be 1 random card discard for Gorzod. So let's see, what is it going to be? There's a hefty bit of glare on that discard pile, but let's see if we can't tell what it is. Looks as though that was the customization station, unless my eyes deceive me. I could only see it for a moment, but it looked as though a bespectacled or begoggled orc holding a spanner. So it's going to be 1 green strong point icon to the right for Baharroth, and once again, that's going to be an HQ absolutely full of units. Of the critical importance here is to realize that Gorzod is almost certainly going to be showing up at planet number 2 to drop off that Assault Valkyrie, because that is his victory condition, and now what Shirin is going to have to do is try to block him off as best she can. She could send all of her armed forces to planet number 2. Planet number 1 is looking like, if you want to lose a lot of units, commit your warlord to planet number 1. So let's see how things break down here. The initiative token, once again, is to the right. In Baharroth's hand, we see a Bealtan Guardian's touchdown on planet number 4. That's going to be a grand total of 4 command icons, which beats the 3 command icons of an enraged orc. That's going to be pretty fantastic, because like I said, Gorzod is very unlikely to be sending himself to planet number 2, but if he did, he would prevent his opponent from getting 1 card and 3 resources, so he will have to ask himself, is that worth not having a ready Assault Valkyrie at the final battle? And in my mind, I would like to have my Assault Valkyrie sitting at Yvarn. But let's see how things go. We've got 2 copies of the Teleporta Pad right now at the Orc Player's HQ. We also see a copy of the Custom Field Generator, so whenever an Orc unit takes an attack, you prevent that damage, and then you reassign all that damage as indirect damage to any number of Orc-only units you control. If you take an attack of 7 and all you've got is a shoot-a-mob, you prevent all that damage, you assign 1 point of damage to the shoot-a-mob, because you can't assign more indirect damage than it has remaining HP, and then you throw away a promotion or something like that as a shield, and boom, there you go, damage prevented. Planet number 2, we see that Baharroth's Hawks, and much more interesting than a Baharroth's Hawks, to the left we see a Daka. That's going to be 1 damage to every unit in play, which is an incredibly mind-boggling play. I guess that's just something that are okay, so definitely not a bad play there. We see Nullify used, and that's going to be Baharroth exhausted, and I think, frankly, if that were me, I'd have been much more likely to exhaust my Autarch Salakia, since Salakia is going to be showing up exhausted anyways, but Baharroth is exhausted. That means he's going to be showing up at a planet exhausted. Daka would have been 1 point of damage to each of these units, would have potentially killed that shoot-a-mob at planet number 2 and at planet number 1, would have triggered Brutal from those enraged orcs, but it could have potentially killed off the Bealtan Guardians, the Warp Spider, the Rogue Trader and Void Pirate. There's no Warp Spider in play. But looks as though both of our players have decided where exactly they'd like to send their forces. Looks as though Pejhmon and I are of one mind in that he sends Gorzod to planet number 2. That Assault Valkyrie is going to be nicely set up for victory. Baharroth's Hawks is a 0-2 mobile unit that doesn't actually have any attack value unless you happen to have it at the same planet as your Warlord. And a very curious choice there is Baharroth drops off a lot of stuff at planet number 3. So note that Autarch, Baharroth, and the Wild Rider Squadron all have a way, whether it's through a combat action or mobile, to shift over to planet number 2 when the time comes, but all the same, Kind of an interesting choice. It does mean that that's going to be guaranteeing 1 card and 3 resources there to the right for Shirin, so that's probably what she was relying on. Looks as though for planet number 1, that's definitely going to be 1 card, 1 resource to the left for Gorzod. Planet number 2 is going to be 1 resource to the right for Baharroth. Planet number 3 is going to be 1 card, 3 resources thanks to the Rogue Trader and Void Pirate. Well, yeah, no, I'm sorry. They okay, yes. 1 card, 3 resources because Bealtan Guardians has 2 command icons. That means it trumps the Enraged Orc. And planet number 4 is going to be 3 cards, 1 resource there for Baharroth. Very interestingly, Baharroth decides to go to planet number 2, and that means that Baharroth's Hawks is going to have an opportunity to attack for 3. That could potentially be 2 points of damage dealt out to that Assault Valkyrie, or it could be killing the Shoot-a-Mob, and let's see how things go. Looks like Taurus is going to be won by Pejhmon, and in doing his unit count, he just drew 3 cards, so I can only imagine that he triggered Taurus. That's going to be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 units under his control, and for our Eldar player, that's, well, it looked as though, unless... okay, 9 units. There we go. I was counting wrong. My eyes were deceiving me. So Taurus is gone. Victory condition here is going to be for Gorzod. As soon as our next turn rolls around, if Gorzod manages to win at Yvvarn, and he is going to be showing up with a mountain of units, then he could potentially block off his opponent and seal the game here. So what exactly is Baharroth going to do? Those Hawks are poised to strike. A Hawk can swoop down and attack at something like 300 or 500 miles per hour. I don't know what that is in kilometers, but for anyone using the metric system, please leave a comment converting miles to kilometers for me. But let's see how combat is going to break down. The initiative, of course, is in Baharroth's hands, and let's see what the Hawks shall do. They can jeopardize the Assault Valkyrie with 2 points of damage prior to shielding, or they could kill the Shoot-a-Mob, or you could bloody Gorzod, but at this point, I think Gorzod's ability has already done work. Looks as though the Hawks, I believe they're attacking the Assault Valkyrie, but let's see. There we go. 2 points of damage onto that unit. That's actually pretty big. You know, that's a big deal. The custom field generator cannot, prevent any of that damage dealt out to AM units, so in a sense, it's a little bit of an interesting conclusion. Note that as soon as you get the customization station, all the AM and SM vehicles suddenly become Orks, so you can use Teleportapad, you can use Battlecry, you can use custom field generator, but seeing as how that's a 1 card out of 50, okay, it looks like we see Battlecry right there, so very interesting. That's going to be until the end of the phase. All the Orks at a target planet are going to get +2 attack power. I believe that's going to be an attack of 4 going out to those Baharroth's Hawks. It didn't look like that was played as shields, so what you gonna do to resist that much damage? What good can Baharroth's Hawks do against such reckless hate, I ask you? There's no Shining Blade discarded as shields, which would have meant that the Hawks would have survived with 1 HP, so those Hawks are gone, and now Baharroth is going to be facing down a 4 attack value Gorzod and a 4 attack value Shoot-a-Mob, so Baharroth decides to retreat, and will we see that Yvvarn trigger? I would surmise not, just so that our opponent can try to keep, his unit count, try to keep as much advantage as possible. If he's already doing pretty well, why take risks here? And let's see, we've got a hell of a lot of stuff in our Orc players HQ. A Doom right now could be absolutely devastating. Our Eldar player certainly has the resources with which to play it, but let's see how things break down. If Gorzod can win at planet number 1, that is going to be the game for him. Note that at planet number 2, that Eldar Survivalist should be ready, but during combat, the Wild Rider Squadron can shift over to planet number 1. We see the copy of the signature attachment, the Blood Runner, affixed to Gorzod, so he's going to be a 2/9 unit at this point, and whenever a vehicle is destroyed, he readies. So you want to attack early with him at the last battle of the game. Potentially, it doesn't really matter if he's bloodied or not. There we go. We see that copy of Doom, and that is going to be a hell of a lot of damage out there. Space Wolf's Predator is gone. Raven Guard Speeder is gone. That alone is 9 resources. I think there was an Enraged Orc and a Shoot-a-Mob. So, wow, that was a hell of a play. Very well done on behalf of our Baharroth player. Wow. Okay, so we see a copy of Gorzod's Wagons put out to planet number 1, and that is a fantastic time to play that card as well. 2 cost, it's got the Goes Fasta specialization, so while the enemy warlord is present at, while your opponent has the initiative, it basically gets +2 attacks. So it's going to be a 3/3 because our Baharroth player is going to be possessing the initiative token, and that would be a very interesting choice not to send Baharroth to that planet. It's possible, but God, I don't know. But we see a copy of the Assault Valkyrie go to planet number 1. That's going to be 3 cost, 4/4 flyer. We see Spirit Seer Erithal there to the right when he attacks, or it's either when he's declared an attacker, I believe, not successfully deals damage. You can basically pick and choose one of your units to remove damage from. We see a copy of the Bealtan Warp Spiders put out to planet number 1. Discarding cards isn't going to be too important right now. Not a lot of utility in milling through your opponent's deck at this point, and as our players are going to pick most assuredly planet number 1 with their dials, we see a copy of the Banner of the Ashen Sky sitting there in Baharroth's HQ, and that's whenever a unit moves from one planet to another planet, it can get +2 attack for its next attack, and I believe that's just for its next attack. So, interestingly, Gorzod ends up going to planet number 3. That's to shut down his opponent from drawing 3 cards and 1 resource. That's a bold move, but let's see if it pays off. And Baharroth, yet another bold move, is actually going to be going to planet number 2 just to ensure that all of those, all of that income happens. So it wouldn't have been much of a big deal to win 1 resource at planet number 1, but it's definitely a big deal to ensure that you get 1 card and 3 resources at planet number 2. So we see the combat phase begin. Baharroth relocates to planet number 1. Of course, planet number 1 meant 1 resource to the left for Gorzod. Planet number 2 is going to be 2 resources, an additional resource, and an additional card to the right for Baharroth. Planet number 3 is going to be 2 cards to the left for Gorzod. And I happen to forget, holy mother of hell, the teleportapad moves Gorzod to planet number 1. So that was absolutely fantastic. Blocked his opponent very nicely, and then like a proper sir, sent Gorzod to planet number 1. The Blood Runner is apparently an interplanetary means of travel. Whatever. Anyways, I guess the teleportapad can move that unit, but why send yourself there so quickly, I guess, is what Pejhmon is thinking, so he doesn't shift himself over quite yet, much like the Wild Rider Squadron doesn't want to, move planets prematurely. Interestingly, we did not see Autarch Salakia gain mobile so as to shift over to planet number 1. Very interesting choice. You'd think that in this, game-deciding battle, you'd want all your units there, unless, of course, you're maybe hanging on to some sort of crazy event, like I think Empower costs 3, or maybe you've got 2 Gift of Isha, something like that. But let's see how exactly things break down. We've yet to see the Banner of the Ashen Sky. Speaking of 2 resource cost events, Archon's Terror means goodbye Assault Valkyrie. Now we see Gorzod relocate to planet number 1. Blood Runner gonna getcha. What exactly is going to happen? The initiative token is in Baharroth's hands, so Baharroth is going to be able to attack with his Warlord for 2, with Spirit Seer for 2, or with the Bealtan Guardians for 1. But we've got a wounded copy of an Assault Valkyrie sitting at planet number 1 that's going to be very happy to potentially kill off Spirit Seer Erithal. We've got that copy of Gorzod's Wagons. We do not have enough resources for another copy of Battlecry for our Orc player. There are a couple other Orc events whose names, frankly, escape me at the moment. I forget the resource cost of Smash and Bash. That might be 2, but I believe that has to be played at a planet either without your Warlord or without the enemy Warlord. But let's see. It's going to be Baharroth's opportunity to attack. Note that Banner of the Ashen Sky has not yet been used, so we might see that used upon the Wild Rider Squadron using its ability to move to an adjacent planet. We see Teleportapad number 2 activate. Normally it's a bit overkill to have more than 1 copy of those in play in a lot of circumstances, but the Enraged Orc shifts away from planet number 2, so that's going to be a 0-5 with Brutal sitting at that planet. And what did I happen to mention earlier in this video? If there's anything that the Eldar struggle to do, especially Eldar allied with Dark Eldar, is conjure up tremendous amounts of attack damage, and even if the mighty Wild Rider Squadron takes a swing of 5 at the Enraged Orc, if there's a single shield icon card, that means the Enraged Orc is going to be attacking back for 4. A custom field generator could block that Orc from being killed, and if it gets 2 opportunities to attack, that's going to be an absolute nightmare. So there we go. Looks like the Banner of the Ashen Sky indeed exhausts, and that means the Wild Rider Squadron is going to be attacking for 5. What exactly is it going to threaten? It could potentially deal 3 points of damage to the Assault Valkyrie. Does our Orc player have a 2 shield icon card? What on earth is the Wild Rider Squadron attacking? It's attacking the Gorzod's wagons, so we could see custom field generator activated, and there we go. That's going to be whopping 5 points of damage reassigned as indirect damage among some of these units. So is it going to be Gorzod that takes all the damage? How's this going to be distributed? There we go. My boy, the Enraged Orc, is going to take 4 points of damage, and that means it's going to be its opportunity to attack. What is it going to hit like a truck? Let's see. 4 points of damage. There we go, right at Spirit Seer there, and unless he can be saved, that's going to be the healing ability removed from that planet. But we see the Shining Blade, the signature attachment of Baharroth, discarded his shields, and that's going to be 1 point of damage on the Spirit Seer. Now, we can see the Spirit Seer attack and remove a little bit of damage. So let us see. There's Baharroth, there's the Spirit Seer, which is definitely a priority target. There's the Bealtan Warp Guardians. Warp Spiders, sorry, and then there's Baharroth. Spirit Seer takes a swing, and what is his target going to be? That's going to be 1 point of damage removed from the Wild Rider Squadron. They're back up to 3 hit points. That's going to be the Assault Valkyrie, potentially taking 1 point of damage. Will it be shielded or not? Never mind. It's going to be 2 points of damage dealt out to the Shoot-a-Mob. That was a shield card. Looks as though maybe that's a Killicans I can see, so I can only assume that's a copy of Battlecry. The Shoot-a-Mob is going to take a swing at Spirit Seer Aerithal. Are we going to see 2 points of damage? Let's see it. I see a copy of the Bealtan Guardians in that hand. I see a Cry of the Wind discarded as shields. That's going to be 1 point of damage out to Spirit Seer Aerithal. It's going to be the opportunity for either Baharroth or the Bealtan Warp Spiders to attack in return. What exactly are we going to see? It's all going to come down to the wire. Can Baharroth salvage this planet? Gorzod sitting there with 8 hit points like a boss. The Bealtan Warp Spiders take a swing. That's going to be 1 point of damage potentially dealt out to the Assault Valkyrie. I guess 0.5 is still rounded up to 1. That's going to be 1 point of damage successfully dealt. And now the Assault Valkyrie are going to have an opportunity to attack. They've only got 1 hit point, so let's see it. There we go. We actually see the Bealtan Warp Spiders abilities activating, and I'm not sure if we did see that forgotten at one point earlier in the video or not. I have absolutely no idea what was discarded, but in all honesty, it's entirely irrelevant to the game if the game indeed ends with a Gorzod victory at this planet. So let's see. Gorzod is going to take a swing for 2 at Spirit Seer Aerithal. Our Eldar player is slowly but surely running out of cards. That's going to be Spirit Seer Aerithal destroyed. No more healing. Always attack the guy wearing a dress first. So Spirit Seer is down. Now the raid boss is going to run amok and finish killing off all these Eldar units. At least that's how it would break down were this an MMO. But let's see. It's going to be Baharroth's opportunity to attack. There we go. Gift of Isha is going to return Spirit Seer Aerithal to play, and Ye of Little Faith. So it looks as though Spirit Seer activates his Soul Stone, returns to play. That's going to be 2 points of damage dealt out to the Assault Valkyrie. Unless we see another 2 shield value card, that is going to be potentially killed. Let's see. I guess we must have seen some sort of shield or some such thing occur, because Spirit Seer ends up being killed by the Assault Valkyrie. So maybe that Gift of Isha was played during an unfortunate action window where it was returned to play and then the opponent had an immediate opportunity to attack. That's definitely a little bit of a shame there if that was indeed the case. We see Gorzod's wagons attack the Wild Rider Squadron for 3. It's going to be a copy of Doom, drop that to 2 points of damage, but then Gorzod finishes the job, ends up killing it with his own attack value of 2. That means we're going to come to the end of a new combat round here. Well, to the beginning of a new combat round. Baharroth takes a swing, ends up killing off that 4-attack Enraged Orc. Now it's just that Bealtan Bealtan Warp Spiders left. I don't know why I keep getting that wrong. Gorzod's Wagons kills it off. That's going to be Gorzod and the Shoot-'em-Mob dealing out 4 points of damage to Baharroth. Looks as though our players are starting to play a little bit fast and loose with their action windows. That's going to be the end of the combat round here. What exactly is Baharroth going to do? Do we see another copy of Gift of Isha? I don't see any resources left. That's going to be a new combat round. The initiative token is in Baharroth's hand. Baharroth does not want to go down without a fight. The Shoot-'em-Mob is outright killed, and there we go. Baharroth is bloodied, banished from the planet. That's going to be Yvonne captured, and that means Pejhmon is going to have the planet-type icons he needs to take this one home. So congratulations to Pejhmon for pulling out this victory. Spectacularly well played with our upcoming Planetfall cycle Gorzod. Always fantastic to see an Orc player, eke out a victory or have a little bit of a landslide victory, as was the case in this match. But thank you so much to Pejhmon and Shirin for providing me with this footage. Be sure to leave a comment below what you thought of this game, what you think of the way that they filmed and lit their environment. They're definitely looking for a few pointers just in regard to how they can make the best footage possible, and hopefully, just like my relationship with Alexander Chimadon between Pejhmon, Shirin, and myself, this is going to be a relationship that'll end up resulting in quite a few additional live-action games for viewers like yourself to enjoy. But with that said, I'll just end this video by saying thank you once again to our players. Thank you for watching, and as always, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel if you've not done so already, or if you are already subscribed, as ever, I always encourage you to share this content, as the more eyes there are upon this content, the more new players may be exposed to Conquest. They might give the game a try, enjoy it, join our community, and of course, we all send a bigger message to Fantasy Flight Games to continue to develop and to support this fantastic product. If at any point you'd like to get in touch with me, I would encourage you to do so through Twitter or on Facebook, whether it's just to talk, whether it's to have me spectate, record, and commentate an Octagon game, or if you feel like pulling an Alexander Chimadon or a Pejhmon or Shirin, I'm always on the lookout for more traditional live-action games like this one. So I'll just say, if at any point you feel so inclined to help support the Hive Tyrant, to help keep me producing videos, I'd be absolutely honored were you to donate to my Patreon. But in any case, thank you so much for watching, and as always, be sure to check back in again soon for ever more Conquest LCG content to come.